Do you wish you had a visual methods course in college? The Band Blueprint is just that. Our visual curriculum contains over 150 videos detailing every aspect of the modern-day marching arts. Built by former band directors and DCI world champions, our curriculum is made to empower and equip you with the tools needed to teach today's marching band. See how over 100 band programs nationwide are using the Band Blueprint to build better bands by visiting thebandblueprint.net.
You can have a piece that has a lot of percussion parts, but if it's the same two measures over and over and over, like if the snare drum is the two measure, then repeat to forever, it's not that that's like the worst thing in the world, but if our goal is to develop our players and also not to bore them, that's probably not, or something we should think about.
I'm recording a podcast. You need to shut that door, please. I'm sorry, Ryan, you're going to have to edit that out. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Band Room Therapy Podcast. I am Rachel Allen, and I am hosting the episode on choosing music for your middle school band. And I am here with three esteemed guests, and we're all going to take turns introducing ourselves. Again, I said my name is Rachel Allen, and I'm a band director in Charlestown, West Virginia. And I have been teaching for 22 years, starting my 22nd year. And I love middle school, and I've spent most of my career there. So I feel like that's where I know the most about band music is in middle school. Jordan?
All right, I'm Jordan White. I'm from Missouri, central area. This is my 5th year teaching. I do everything 6 through 12, as well as some 5th and 6th grade general music.
I'm Jeff Simpson. I am going into year 28 of teaching. I'm primarily all 6 through 8, and I teach in Michigan.
And I'm Randall Standridge. I am currently a full-time composer and publisher and clinician, but I was a band director for 12 years in Harrisburg, Arkansas, where I taught grades 5 through 12 every single day for 12 years. So if you added that time into the time I've been a full-time composer when I've been traveling and conducting and clinicking, this would make education year number 25.
Wow, a quarter of a century.
Oh, yeah.
That's about as old as Jordan is.
26.
Yeah. Well, we're here because of middle school band music, and, a lot of us play your music, Randall. And I will say that when your music first started coming out and we really started getting access to it, it changed so much for me. So, I will say when I was choosing music, when I first started, there wasn't a lot of options with percussion music. That's the first thing I look at when I'm choosing music is the percussion parts, because I've always have a ton of percussionists in my band. And you cannot leave a percussionist bored. They've got to play something. So, yeah.
Yeah, I will definitely agree with that. And while we're on that subject, it's because I do write for, I've got the whole kind of moniker in the band world with the, too much damn percussion, like that's something which I wear with honor because I am a percussionist, that's my main instrument. But it's one thing, and this is one of the things I strive for, not only with, pieces that I write, but also with ones that I publish or that I program, is to make sure that it's not just that there's a lot of percussion, but that it's well written. Because you can have a piece that has a lot of percussion parts, but if it's the same two measures over and over and over, like if the snare drum is the two measure, then repeat to forever, it's not that that's like the worst thing in the world, but if our goal is to develop our players and also not to bore them, that's probably not, or something we should think about, so it's not just the amount of percussion, but it's also the quality of the writing. And I'm certainly not the only composer that writes well for percussion. I mean, there's a lot that do, but that is something that I always strive for.
Really good point there. What thoughts do you guys have?
Well, above my head, I didn't know she was there, but my daughter is a pretty outstanding trombone player. And she made it really clear to me I was really bad at picking music for low brass people, like complains. And still to this day, when I'm listening to music at home, just to see what I want to pick, she's like, no, like that's the same 4 notes all over. And I'm like, yep, I need to. So I try to look at music and make sure that everyone's going to have something to do. I don't want to lose my low brass players because they're our foundation. And when you give them the same boom, 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 or whatever, or whole notes galore, it's going to be utterly boring for them and nothing for them to really work on and rehearse. So I really try to make sure that something is interesting for every player in my ensemble.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because my saying on that for band directors is, for your low brass in particular, if you keep showing them footballs, you can't be surprised when they quit your class and go play football.
Exactly.
Jordan, do you have some thoughts?
As a trombone player, I agree. I definitely had, especially in middle school, a lot of boring music, but being a low brass player and just definitely working with them and having that expertise, throwing some fun stuff, they can definitely handle some challenges. The tuba loves to play 16ths whenever you can throw it at them. Other than that, when I'm looking for music, I am definitely thinking, just listening, like I'm kind of zoning out, looking off into space right now. As I listen, can I do that and then just kind of imagine what I'm doing or what I'm thinking of with that? Is this a piece I actually see in front of my group? And it just has to have some kind of journey. Like there has to be something going on with it. If I feel like at any point I am tuning the piece out entirely, then that is not good for my group because I know that they will get bored with it just as quick as I did in just listening to it.
Yeah, and you'll get bored teaching it too, maybe. Like that's another thing. Like some people are like, well, you don't have to like the music to teach it. And I'm like, I think you kind of do.
Yeah, there's too much music out there to play something you don't like.
Exactly. Like I love the history music based on historical things or that you can paint a picture from or have the kids tell a story from. I think that's part of the joy of teaching middle school. Like we get to still have fun with them. There's still that little kid there. And so when you ask them their opinion about music, they can give you all sorts of, colorful descriptions. And if you can play off that, that's going to make that music even more fun for them.
Absolutely. And they can smell when you aren't into it. Kids can smell fake from a mile away.
But yeah, well, I can't even tell you how many times, like I even, because we're talking about whether we like the piece, but it's also that you have to have that relationship with the kids on whether they do it, particularly with middle school. I would pass out things when I was a director and we would sight read it. And after that, I was like, and that is going back in the folder. Like that is, we are not doing that this year. Because, if you want just a like short season in hell, try to drag a group through a piece that they are not going to like,
Exactly. Yeah, I think that picking music is definitely the most important thing we do in our job. Like I'd go 10 toes down on that with a lot of people, that it's severely important because that's the end result for a lot of us is the performance. I mean, obviously it's the musician too, but the music that they're playing I think is a big deal. What do you guys think of that? Do you think it's just as important as anything else or more important?
Well, I mean, really what you're doing when you're picking your pieces for concerts is you're curating the student experience. I mean, that really is what you're doing. For me, and I think, particularly with middle school, and this is, something that I don't think gets talked about enough because, once they get to high school, there's things we'll want to teach them. There's things that we'll want to, explore. But that formative time of middle school, when you've got to introduce so much, you've got to, make sure that they, get the key signatures. You've got to make sure that they get experience in compound time. You've got to make sure they get experience in all of these things that will assist them as they go up. I think picking music successfully for middle school is way harder than picking for more advanced ensembles just because of everything you have to take into consideration.
I pick mine a lot on the concepts I teach. Like every year, my 7th grade year is the syncopation year. So I pick a lot of music with syncopation. My fall concerts are always Halloween based. So we do minor music an awful lot there. So they're getting their ear into there. So yeah, I have specific things that I look for. And that's why like when I'm looking at music online, if it doesn't have a score on it, I'm just going to pass by it because I want to be able to see what I'm going to have to teach. So I think that's very important that you can, use that music to help boost your curriculum that way.
Yeah, I think Jeff and Randall and I both lived in the world where you couldn't hear or see the music before you bought it. And
I used to drive to Pepper. There was like a Pepper in the west part of my state. And we used to drive there and take like a personal day to go sit and look through scores every fall.
there was like a box
Crazy.
of CDs and cassettes.
Yep, I remember those
I
too.
would just like go through and be like, all right, well, let's see if I can find something good
Jordan,
here.
do you know what CDs are or
Yes,
cassettes?
I know CDs.
Okay, just want to make sure we're catching up here.
Yeah.
And, while we're talking about that, I just want to throw in, since we're talking about concepts, repertoire, and how we select music based on that, one of the things that because I do a lot of clinics, I do a lot of workshops going out to conferences and things. And one of the things I talk about is that when you're selecting music for a concept, like what you're talking about, Jeff, it's not enough for the concept to just be present in the music. You also have to make sure that it is present for every player. And that's where sometimes we get into some trouble with some of the stuff that when we're trying to teach concepts. Because, like, for example, I mean, obviously I'm going to quote a lot of my own music here, that not because I'm not trying to sell anybody anything. This is just my point of reference. Okay. But like I wrote this whole series called the 16th Empire series.
Awesome.
So it's
Awesome one.
fanfare. Well, thank you. Fanfare, song, and warriors. And the whole concept is to introduce 16th notes, to the players. But one thing, if you go through it, like especially since you two guys, are trombone players, I made sure that like the tubas, the trombones, everybody gets 16th notes, and in lots of ways to make sure that the concept again is present for all the students. Because yeah, it's great to introduce the concept, but if it's not for every player, then I mean, what's the point?
Yeah, I used to find myself like flipping through scores and like, okay, I've got to teach dotted quarter notes. Well, let's find something with dotted quarter notes. And I'd find it in every part but like the low brass, or every part but the clarinets. And I was like, oh, this is so annoying. And now I found this piece, this Linus and Lucy arrangement, which is just everybody has the dotted quarter note. And I'm like, I'm playing this every year. This is just going to become a standard because it taught those kids, like it had percussion subdividing and then it had everyone else playing dotted quarter notes. And I was like, that's exactly what I need to teach dotted quarter notes. Is because that's such a hard concept for some kids to get. And it's something I find myself reteaching a lot as dotted quarter notes. So
I think when you can find, like I have several pieces that are on my yearly rotation because I know they will teach that. And it comes a joke, like my 8th graders be like, seriously, we're going to have to listen to these kids play that again. But I love this piece called Metal on March. It's a great march for my 6th graders. I think it's by O'Reilly. And it teaches the march form really well. It's not overly difficult, but those kids feel so proud when they play it finally because it's one of their first real musics. And so I play the heck out of it because it's easy and I have that. I don't have to do a lot of study, so I can work more on, helping them and getting right into the ensemble a lot more. So I think when we find those tried and true ones that are just great for education, we use them a lot.
have you found anything like that, Jordan? Or are you just constantly adding new stuff because you're learning?
Honestly, I'm always kind of adding new stuff. I think a portion of it is when I got to the district I'm in now. So I've been in the same district and this is my 5th year. Even the high school was playing some lower level stuff. There's only 17 kids. So instrumentation was definitely a challenge on all levels. But I would start putting some harder stuff in front of them. And while they weren't perfect at it, I could tell that I was teaching them more than what they had been given before. So every year, my middle school library was just full of grade 1, 1.5. So just trying to throw in some 2s. I've popped a 2.5, or even last year I gave them a 3 and handled it very well. But I try to pick from ye old library every once in a while, but as much as I can just get some new stuff in front of them too, if it just fits the group that I have.
Yeah, that makes sense. Randall, when you were at your school that you were at, did you find yourself using your own library that was there or buying new stuff more?
Definitely a combination of both. The school that I taught in was, very rural, very, Title I school, low socioeconomic. So we did not have a large budget. So, and the program was in such disrepair when I took it over that, a lot of our budget was not only going to, purchasing music that I wanted, but repairing instruments, getting new instruments for a growing program. So I had to kind of balance the two things. And then, of course, they had the added benefit of that I wrote music.
Right.
And so, like, sometimes, like, literally some of the things like Fanfare for the 16th Empire or things like that, I literally wrote for my kids because we didn't have the money to buy music. And so, I would say a little bit of both. But yeah, I would encourage any director, listening to this, you need to explore your library because you can find some really great stuff in there. Like, for example, in our library, when I finally got my band up to about a grade 3, we found this older piece that I'd actually played when I was in high school and loved, which was Fantasia on a hymn by Praetorius by Robert Foster. And and that was something I probably wouldn't have just found and bought, with my budget, but just going through the library and found, I was like, oh, this is a great piece. We should play this. So just make sure that you know what is in your library.
Mhm.
And also, just because it's old music doesn't mean it's bad music. So for you young directors out there, I mean, all the new stuff, yeah, I'm still writing a lot of new stuff, but there's a lot of good old stuff out there too.
Well, I'm gonna, champion Jordan up here because his group is going to be performing at his all-state conference next year. So, because he is his high school group, and I'm jealous because he has a band with low percussionists, so he can play like songs like Three Airs from Gloucester, which is a wonderful piece that you can't normally play because there's only like 3 percussion parts. So
yeah, and can I jump? That actually brings up a good point, Rachel, that I want people to think about too. Because speaking as a percussionist, percussion is always the one group that when you do have too many of, it seems like directors are willing to be like, well, just sit out on this one. just another one. So I wanted to, let's just do a little bit of math real quick. Okay. Let's just say the average band, in the United States does 3 or 4 concerts a year. Let's assume 4 for the sake of argument. Okay. And at each concert, let's assume they will do 3 pieces. I mean, I know some people do more, so whatever, but we're just for this. So out of 12 pieces for the year that you're going to make your repertoire, you're going to take out an entire piece for one of your players. I don't think so. So, you are really robbing people's percussion band experience when you do that. Sorry, I had to jump in on my soapbox about percussion there. But you make a good point, Rachel, because like when you do have lower numbers, because like that piece I just mentioned, the Fantasia on a theme by or a hymn by Praetorius, I only had 5 percussionists and it fit perfect because I think we had to leave one part out, but it worked out fine. But everybody was busy.
Let's keep those percussionists busy. Let me tell you.
Mine
Yeah.
are pretty well tamed, actually. Talk about it a little bit, like the stereotypical percussionists and low brass are always going to cause disruptions and distractions, and like trumpets have an ego. In my band, they're very opposite. It's usually my saxophones or even sometimes my clarinets just goofing off. My trumpets all sit there ready to go. They're just like, can you guys stop talking so we can play?
They're like flutes now.
They're like flutes, yeah.
No, you try to correct them and they're like, oh, absolutely not. I played that note 100% correct.
So we talked a little earlier about grade levels. We think about grade levels because they're so different. And, Randall, you could probably speak to this too because you have a publishing company now. But I remember when I first started, I got a piece of music, or I pulled out a piece of music. It was a Robert W. Smith piece. It may have been The Tempest. It may have been Morpheus. It may have been Furioso. It may have been Glorioso. One of those Robert W. Smith beginner pieces. And that's what it says at the top, beginner band. And I was young and I was like, oh, beginner band. This is going to hand this out. It says beginner band on it. It is absolutely not beginner band. It's like grade 1, maybe 1.5. And those kids struggle bust through the whole thing. And it drove me crazy. And then we started getting pieces being labeled beginner band. And I was like, oh, game changer. So thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think it really goes to just what each individual publisher is calling beginning band because, for example, if you just go across the United States, like a beginning band in, the middle of nowhere, Arkansas, is going to be very different from a beginning band in a large city in Texas. And that's not a read. I mean, people like to gripe about the advantages Texas bands have, and I'm like, what you should be griping about is that everybody doesn't have those advantages. It's like I think you're fighting the wrong fight. But so I think sometimes the term beginning band for some publishers actually means the first band experience, by which I mean ensemble experience. Because for me, beginning band, we call it that, but it's really more like beginning instrumentalist. Where we're just teaching a lot of, technique, a lot of things to get ready for that actual ensemble experience. And granted, some people do approach beginning band that way, which is perfectly fine. But some people really approach it as we are teaching an individual instrumentalist and we're really not going to worry about ensemble until, later. So taking it back to your, question about grade levels, I think each publisher is going to have kind of their own, general definition for what that is. So that's where you said in this current age where we have access to scores and we can look at the scores, it really is the onus is on directors to make sure they're looking at the music before they buy it or program.
100%.
Yeah, and you just can't I don't know, everybody's beginning band is different situation.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we're all in the same boat of current directors. We teach everybody together. I don't have them in special groups or anything like that. And this year I had them in woodwinds and percussion and brass, which is a first for me. But but I'm still treating them like a band to me. They're still a band, and if you had them in small groups, then yeah, you could treat it differently. But, to get them playing in that band experience, I think is important. So thoughts on beginner music? Because to me, that's the worst part of the grading system is in the beginning world. But that's my experience anyway. But
I struggle with some of the stuff that is labeled beginner because when I would actually play it, my beginners are past that. So my first concert for my beginners, I do an informants. So it's totally rote. It's 4 weeks of using solfege to teach them just to get to play. And I do a 45-minute concert for their parents. There's parents sit with them, and it's just like how I teach class. So by the time we're getting to reading music, which they would have the beginner ones, it's so easy. Like it's just all straight quarter notes and things like that, and using the first 5 notes, which say no. So I think that if you do something different, like if you don't do what I do, maybe that first concert could be that. But again, it's knowing your ensemble. You have to actually put that study time in. I don't think I was taught that in college back in the 90s, like how much you actually have to study scores before you select music. When I went to school back in the 90s, they didn't really talk about middle school music at all. I came out and I actually had a high school band, and I tried to play it was a little class D school, and we tried to play English folk song suite. And totally bombed. But I didn't know anything about music to fit the ensemble. So now, I mentor teachers a lot, and I'm like, you can't pull that off. Your trumpets can't play above a C right now. Why are you even looking at that? Like a tempest, those trumpets can't handle that. Pa, 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 pa. It's really, really difficult for them. So when I look at beginning music, it's just setting a long time. Like instead of scrolling all night, and get on Pepper and just listen. Or like Randall has his own web page, and I'm doing this project with a lot of composers, and I'm looking at all their web pages and putting those out for my kids to listen to. And like, go there and listen to this music by this composer or their people only. And then you guys can start seeing that too. So if you just go by the 1 or 1.5 or 2 or 2.5, I think you're going to really make some mistakes. You can't buy music blindly.
Agreed.
I think, man, I've had a lot of thoughts. So when I go to select music, especially if I'm like JW Pepper, I'll go kind of extreme on the range depending on what group I'm looking for. That way I'm not just looking at, I'm just going to look at medium easy, or I'm just going to look at medium. Because I think when you do click on things like just medium easy, you're going to get where it says, like Randall was saying, where you have a 2, and that may not be a Missouri 2, that might be a Texas 2, which my 7th and 8th grade band is not going to handle. But when it comes to the ones labeled beginning band, since I'll be starting my 5th group of beginners, I can very clearly say that the 4 groups of beginners I've had have all been extremely different. I've had my very first group of beginners probably struggled through both of their 0.5 pieces my first year for various reasons, yours truly probably included. But my beginners this last year, we ran through Mechanical Monsters for their Christmas concert, and that was something that they got to do. And otherwise, when it comes to those, I kind of agree that they're either too easy or they're completely mislabeled. So we'll use them for various things, like we do a band day performance where everyone in our district band-wise gets together and we teach the youngers how to read sheet music. So we'll use examples of those so the older kids can help out with those parts.
I think when you said you would miss on one of them, I compared beginners to like a golf game. Like, how do you ruin a golf game after hit the ball after a good shot? So like some years those beginners will just lock in, and then the other years are just crazy, or whatever, how they mix your classes and things like that. So yeah, it's throwing stuff against the wall and see what sticks. Has to happen an awful lot.
Yeah, no, real quick story about that. I had these 2 years when it was close to the end of my time at Harrisburg, and I had this one class come through, beginning class, and they were awesome. I mean, they were just like the smartest kids I'd ever taught, and of course in my mind I was like, wow, I'm getting to be a better director, things are going good. But I was good. Like, I've always told people, if I ever go back to teaching, my dream job would be to be the beginning band guy, like, period.
100%.
Well, because for me, I know my strengths. I was a really good high school director. I was a really good middle school director. All modesty aside, I was a beast beginning band teacher. That was my forte. And I taught this group, and like by the end of the year, this particular group was doing like grade 1 music. They even had a 1.5, and they were just killing it. So I was feeling really good, and the universe provided some real quick balance, because the next year, I was just thinking, oh yeah, we've got our program in place. Things are really good. We're going to be producing bands like this now. The next class that came through, it was just like they had made a suicide pact of like, we are not going to do what the last year did, come hell or high water. And that was the roughest beginning band year I think I've ever had, except for my very first year there. Yeah. And what was really fun was because our middle school band was 2 grades. So it was like, they were in beginning band 6th grade, then 7th and 8th together. So when I finally had that really high achieving group in 8th grade and this group came up in 7th, I was like, okay, we are a mentor band this year. Like, we are doing a strong mentoring concept. Yeah. And we did finally we really brought them up. It changed, but boy, that year was, sorry, I know this is really nothing to do with what we're talking about, but man, that was a rough year.
I think that also brings up a good point now that you're saying that. So we've always had 7th and 8th combined for concerts, but my district has always had them in separate classes, which there are benefits to that and then not, but that's not this kind of conversation specifically. But when it comes to music, I will say that that was one of the biggest things I thought I was going to struggle with at first, was having a group that were 8th graders that have played stuff in years past, and then having my 7th graders who are only 2nd-year players trying to join in. So just trying to meet both of them where they're at, my 8th graders who need more of a challenge, but my 7th graders who aren't at that level yet.
That is definitely a challenge. I don't know how you guys do that. Like I'm lucky to have like individual bands. Like we'll combine in the summertime for stuff, and for parades, and things that we do like that. But even in our own district, all the other middle schools that we have to combine to go to like festival or something to have enough kids. And I just honestly, during COVID, that really taught me, because we had to teach multiple sections of the same class over and over again. That taught me that I don't want to teach the same thing all day long, because that would, if I did the same music this period, the same music this period, I would go crazy.
I have 2 6th grade band classes that play the same and 2 7th grade band classes that play the same.
Wow.
And then my 8th grade is in one class. So
Yeah, and this actually goes directly to what we're talking about, which is repertoire selection, because I think, we're just mainly talking about like concert band stuff, which is great. But what you're talking about, Jordan, like with how do you meet the different levels, and Rachel, how do we meet the different levels? For us, since I had that situation, one of the ways we addressed that was, obviously, like I said, we did the mentor thing, which helped out because they had the strong leadership. But beyond that, we put a really big focus on chamber music and etudes as well, because in Arkansas, all of our honor bands are by audition.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we had a yearly rotation of etudes, scales, exercises we had to learn. And that provided, that's repertoire too. And that was a way that we were able to develop, our older players while still meeting the needs for younger players. So just for younger directors that might be, listening or watching, that's, I cannot emphasize enough how much you need to have a strong chamber music concept in your program. A lot of directors skip out on that. I can't even tell you how many band programs I have visited across the United States where there is zero chamber music going on. It is a game changer. If you will really invest the time and figure out how to get it into your program, it is an absolute game changer in terms of enjoyment, in terms of individual development. Strongly pro chamber music in terms of repertoire.
Yeah, and it can look in so many different ways. It can look different. Like, it can be like playing some Christmas music at the nursing.
Oh, yeah.
In some small groups. Like, it doesn't have to be like, oh, we're playing a brass quintet or a woodwind quintet. Like, it can be like a flute player and a trombone that's friends that are playing a duet, that's, from the book or whatever.
I highly recommend investing money in the duets or trios for all books. Those are great. Randall, I used to do that pre-COVID. Like every Friday was chamber music day. And we're going back to that this year. Like I finally can get back to doing that. And that gives your kids so much leadership. They have to figure out how to blend and balance better and read the rhythms. And, we go through how everyone needs to know every part. Those books are not that expensive at all. And just photocopy the heck out of it. So
And, one thing I would do a lot was because, chamber music can be groups, but it can also be, just soloistic stuff. Something I would do every week was to write out some melody. It might be, a folk song. It might be a pop melody, just something. And I would write it out for all of our kids. And so we had the melody of the week, and it was part of our warm up. We did. This was even with my high school group, and the kids loved that, because one thing also I think we forget about is that, like in beginning band, we do such a good job of getting the kids excited because we play melodies, we play Mary Had a Little Lamb, Go Tell Aunt Rhoda, and the kids love it. But somewhere along the way, when we get into all this ensemble stuff, we lose that. We lose that passion. And we have to keep in mind that, kids, everybody's first touchstone with music is melody and rhythm. Those are the two foundations of music experience for people. And so, I would do that mainly just because I wanted to get my kids excited about playing their instruments. Because if there's a new, like Beyonce song out, and I could write out the chorus for it for my kids just on the, just as a melody, even for my tubas, my trombones, and they could play something, they got really excited about it because it was better than just sitting there playing, just the accompaniment.
Absolutely, you're right. I'm not as savvy with the online, like the writing of the music, but sometimes I'll have kids write stuff down, like, "Hey, can you figure this out?" Then they come with a piece of paper with the letters on it.
Yeah. Well, it's all over YouTube. My daughter does it all the time. She just plays YouTube songs, and just have them do that and write it, and then write it for someone else too. They have that power.
They sure do.
Band directors, students, and parents love the Better Sax classic alto and tenor saxophones because of their beautiful sound, excellent intonation, solid build quality, sturdy case, and the fantastic mouthpiece included. Right now, get $100 off the classic alto and $200 off the classic tenor at both Sweetwater and Amazon for their back-to-school promotion. Sweetwater is even offering 48 months no interest financing. That works out to about $19 a month for the alto and $32 a month for the tenor, significantly less than the rental fees. And your student owns a well-built, brand-new saxophone outright at the end. The Better Sax YouTube channel has helped hundreds of thousands of saxophonists improve their skills, and the company is recognized worldwide for its commitment to providing high-quality instruments at more accessible prices. Teachers, pros, and technicians are routinely surprised by how much their expectations are surpassed, both in terms of the instrument themselves and the prices. This offer is only available until September 30th and subject to availability. So don't wait. Visit the link in the description or head over to sweetwater.com. Hey, if it's been a while since you've looked at Sight Reading Factory, you might be surprised by everything it can do. Most directors know it for generating infinite sight reading exercises, but today it's much more than that. It's a complete music literacy toolkit designed to save time and help students become stronger readers. From auto assessment and auto-graded assignments to LMS integration, quests, and teacher-created badges, Sight Reading Factory makes it easier to teach, assess, and motivate students all in one place. And because every exercise is customizable, it's easy to differentiate between each instrument at every grading level. Plans start at just $3 per student. Visit sightreadingfactory.com to learn more. Read music better.
So, real quick, I know we've all had this experience, but when was a time that you played a piece at a concert and you actually got to the performance and you played it and looking back, you were like, man, that was too hard. Anybody like was that worth playing? Or, like you actually kind of questioned it a little bit.
Yeah. I'll go first. So this actually happened at one of the first times I conducted an honor band. I mean, like at this point in my career, I've conducted, over 120 honor bands. But way back in the day, when I was first learning how to do all that, in my mind, I was thinking honor band, these kids are going to be able to play anything. I could just throw whatever at. And and it was a junior high, honor band. And I can't even remember the piece. I'm racking my brain, but it was something. And I just remember anyway, long story short, we ended up having to stop and restart at the concert, which isn't the worst thing in the world. I mean, it's not great, but it's not like the worst one. But, obviously being a young director and this being one of my first gigs, I was really embarrassed, and it was totally my fault. Because I should have, after the first several rehearsals on that piece, did not go well. I should have pulled it and done something easier. But, hindsight's 2020.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think my first winter Christmas concert I was ever teaching, I was nervous about the ending. So being young and very dumb, we didn't rehearse the ending that much. So we got to the concert and it just fell apart. We couldn't even limp to the end of it. And, and I apologize because the kids were embarrassed and it was 100% my fault. So that's made me change how I always look at music now too. I rarely start in the beginning. I try to start at the end an awful lot so we know how to end that piece. And so I think most of mine happened in my younger years. And again, when we talked about when a group did something well and then you come back and try to do it again or something, I got a little arrogant at times being like, oh, we could fly through this song. And no, we could not fly through that song. So, but I think a lot of it is just on me. I'll just say that. Did I prep them like I should have? So, I make calendars now through every concert cycle, and I need to be playing through the piece by this day, at a month before the concert and things like that. So I try to hold myself accountable because the last thing I want to do is embarrass children on that stage.
I mean, that kind of piggybacking off that, I always tell the kids, I was like, I will never put a bad performance out again. And I say again, because especially my first year coming out of college, I think we mentioned this, but they really don't prepare you for the middle school level of things because you're playing, Lincolnshire Posey or anything else in your ensembles. And then you get thrown into beginning band position or even middle school band. And, what do you put in front of? So really the only experience I could go off of was my time in high school at a 5A school or my student teaching, which was a 4A. And they're playing grade 2 or grade 3, depending on it. So that's what I threw in front of them. And there's a couple pieces that I pulled because I was like, this is not where they're at. But others, I mean, I kind of felt like, was like, no, you have to do this because this is what 7th or 8th grade bands should be playing. But to answer the initial question of like, when do you realize? For me, it's usually a year later when I'm like, oh, there's a video from the concert. Let me watch it because it pops up in my Facebook memories. And then I clicked on it. And after 5 seconds, I go, yeah, well, we're going to go ahead and delete that one. Should never listen to it again. But
See, that wasn't a thing. Like when I was like,
Yeah.
there aren't like videos of that.
Some
There's no
from
documentation.
experience, it's probably for the best because reliving some of this stuff is interesting. But I think it does help make me feel better now that I'm going into my 5th year because I have a better sense of my group as well, and I know what they can handle. So it's nice to see that there are things developing.
One of the things I find amazing, like we're on our technology right now, is the amount of band directors that don't know or even think about recording with their phone. Like just getting that recording. So I record all the time and I post it on my private YouTube channel for the kids so they can go. I don't have any kids on it, but they can go and listen. And I wish they all would go listen, but the ones that do, they're like, man, we didn't separate this. It was too loud here or whatever it could be. But using your phone at a rehearsal like that is probably one of the best things you could do to fix things immediately.
So all of my directors I had growing up were very much of the philosophy of like, this music is appropriate for you. You are capable of doing this. If you can't, it's your fault. And so it was very much like the guilt and shame, like kind of teaching. And so I think that's very much like the way I started my career as like, this music should be, this says beginning band, you're beginning band, I was very, didn't know much. And so I put like, Jeff, you said earlier, it was my fault. It was my fault. And I think at the beginning, I didn't think it was my fault. Like I very much thought it was the kids' fault and they just weren't practicing. They should practice more. But ultimately, I feel like everything that goes wrong is my fault now. And because ultimately I'm in charge and I'm the one making the decisions and I'm the one putting the music out there. So which took me a long time to get to that as a teacher and even like as a human, I think. But that's for another podcast. But to tell my story about the piece that was too hard, I'll try to be as quick as I can. I had that class, like Randall had said, that was just the smartest, most talented class on the planet. And they were the best. And I'd had my first child when they were in 7th grade. So I'd taken some time off and then I came back in 8th grade and I was like, boy, we're going to have a lot of fun. I missed them. I wanted to be back with them. And we started working on, I'm so embarrassed to even say the pieces that we took to festival, not only played, but we played for judges. We played Chant and Jubilo by Francis Macbeth, which is a grade like 4 in West Virginia, and Trail of Tears by James Barnes, which is a grade 4 in West Virginia, which are 2 pieces I played in college. Like, I don't know why on earth I thought my kids could play these pieces. And they kind of did. I think all the like decent ones played it, but not all of them. And I had a judge pull me aside after festival because I think I got 2 2s and a 1. And I think the 1 was really generous. Let's just say that. The judge had pulled me aside and he was like, I can see what you were doing, but it wasn't a good idea. And I don't know. I think I was in maybe my 6th year or something, but it took me a long time to realize, hey, the music's too hard and I gotta make it easier on these kids so that they can feel some success. So
I think we need to surround ourselves with people like that. Like I almost quit teaching after my first festival, and my favorite professor, her name is Colleen Conway out of U of M, and I called her. I'm like, I'm quitting. I'm turning in my keys on Monday, and she was like, well, let's settle down. And she was like, I said, I can't hear the mistakes that well. I couldn't hear the wrong notes. I couldn't hear this. And she said, you need to turn into a detective. Like when you get your music, you need to look for what you know they're going to make mistakes on. You have to anticipate. Like I had never thought about that. No one told me that in undergrad. Nothing. Like in anticipating where they're going to struggle. And it really turned my teaching around. Like that next year I came back and the bands did so much better. I picked better music, but again, and I brought people to listen to my band. My first year, I just didn't bring anyone in because I knew we were bad. When I say we, I knew I wasn't teaching them where they should be at. So.
Yeah. Just throwing in on a couple of ideas, since we're piling on here. One thing I would do, which you have to keep in mind, I think most of us here have this experience of like teaching alone, where like it's like tag, you're it, you're in charge of everything. So the translation of that is we have to be very well versed in all of the instruments. instruments. Like, it's not enough for us to be good at our primary instrument. We have to, really know the ins and outs of all the instruments. So something I would recommend to young directors, and this again goes to repertoire. What you just said, Jeff, about finding pitfalls, you can do that by looking at the score. But another way to do that and to improve your own skills is to take parts and play through them yourself. Just make yourself do it. And what you're struggling with, they're going to struggle with, because you have a music degree. So if you're riding the struggle bus with that, then they are going to be, riding on top of
Right.
it and probably screaming and waving flags.
Yeah, there's been multiple times when I've been playing with the saxophone section and I'm like, this fingering is so tricky, gosh, and then but it took me years to kind of lock in alternate C fingering. And I'm like, oh, we just use alternate C here. And but until you get those nuggets in you on all the instruments, especially clarinet, oh my gosh, all the alternate clarinet fingerings, and if you don't know to teach those, that can, the piece that might have worked great was really difficult because they're trying to play the wrong fingering.
Yep. And that actually opens up a whole other can of worms that we should probably do a whole other podcast episode about. But one of the, and this goes back to kind of what we were talking about, with percussion and with everything else, is one thing I would also say to directors regarding repertoire is you can't rely only on repertoire to teach everything. And you also can't allow repertoire to dictate what you're teaching. Because I'll give you an example. When I was teaching beginning band, I was very fortunate. I mean, I was at a small school, but I had a very, very supportive administration. And by my third year I'm there, the beginning band was split into 3 classes. And I had a brass class, a woodwind class, and a percussion class, which was awesome. But one of the things I started doing then was, yes, we would start learning to read the notes out of the beginning band book and all that. But we would spend time every day doing what I called instrument theory, which was where we would just explore the instrument. Okay, how do you play this? And we wouldn't even worry about the book. It was a lot of rote teaching. It was a lot of, that. So this is not an exaggeration. And I think sometimes people think, oh, small school in Arkansas, you're lying. But this is the truth. By the end of the first semester, because we also, just to make sure everybody understands my situation, separate classes, we also saw our kids every single day, 5 days a week. So by the end of the first semester, my beginning flutes would be able to play from the C below the staff all the way to the forked F above the staff and back down from memory chromatically, naming every single note. Why? Because we worked on it. And because I made the time to work on it. And, I didn't wait on the book or the repertoire to tell me, hey, you need to teach this. And so, I think sometimes, I really liked what Jeff said about, doing so much rote at the beginning of the year and things, which I am very pro doing that. Because I think too many times directors can get so locked into, well, the book is teaching this, well, this piece is teaching this, that we forget there's a whole lot more to the instruments and the musical experience.
Yeah, that's very true. I'm often scared to teach new things because I'm like, well, then they won't remember it. And I'm like, they're barely remembering what I'm teaching them right now. Let's just throw the fingering chart at them, why not?
Yeah, I will say, go ahead.
The rote teaching, my first concert, the parents are always like, holy cow, these kids could be in choir too, because we do sing. We use straight solfege and they have to sing the right pitches. And obviously when I go to note names, we don't sing as much. I need to find a way, because I did music learning theory back when Gordon was alive. I took a class with him and was really big into it. But I'm trying to find still, after all these years, how to connect it better from going from that rote. And because my kids will get stuck on do has got to be concert B flat. I'm like, well, no, do can change. I love movable do. It makes a lot of sense to me. And they just don't get that. So I'm trying to, I've never given up on it, but my kids all know solfege. They remember it. We talk about it. We use it. But in the beginning, they sing so well because we do that all the time too. So I think the more I get my kids to sing, they better, my brass players play a lot better. They can hear those intervals better. So, but Rachel, it is, you try those new things. What's the worst thing can happen?
Right.
You're not going to hurt.
That's true.
You're a great teacher. We've all heard your bands. So you can mix it in and,
yeah, we were talking, Jordan and I were talking earlier before you guys got on, and just we're both, we're starting the beginning of the year. You're almost mourning last year's group, thinking about we're starting fresh again, and you're thinking about where they were and not where they are right now. And so I don't know, sometimes it puts us in a am I actually good? Because they're, they took 2 months off. Well, can they still play their instruments? So sometimes I don't know. That's where I think that's the headspace I'm in right now too. I think a lot of directors will get into. So of those yearly cycles, it's not May where you're like, woo, all right, we made it through the year. We're sounding good. It's August.
Yep.
The worst month. Randall, were you going to say something? I don't
Oh,
know.
I was just going to say what we were talking about like, rote things and putting in new things. Jordan, you mentioned my work, Mechanical Monsters, a second ago. And what's funny is, I mean, to this day, I love that piece. I think it's really fun. But I cannot tell you how many directors have taken me to task over that piece just for one thing only, which is the concert D flat.
I love it. I'm
It's
so
great. My
glad it's
trombones
there.
kill that.
Well, I know, but here's the thing, because the argument was that, this is a beginning band piece, so it's supposed to only be the first 6 notes. And here's the thing, too, like, I am just country boy enough, and got just enough chip on my shoulder, and also I have no roadblock between, like, my brain and my mouth. So sometimes people get the unfiltered Randall, and this director was like, well, you really shouldn't have that D flat here. And I was like, what I'm hearing is that you can't teach one more note. Like, that's really what I'm hearing, Yeah.
I use that all the time. Like, we'll be playing clarinets will be playing E flat again or whatever. The E flat for clarinet? Yeah.
Yes.
And it'll be like 7th grade. I'm like, guys, this is a Mechanical Monsters note. Come on.
say that every time. Actually, I think there was the time I FaceTimed you during my 6th grade band to motivate them. And I was just like, we were talking about it. I'm like, guys, it's the Mechanical Monsters note. And that's how you reference concert D flat
Yes.
pretty much
That's
still
so
to this
fun.
day.
It's
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
great. You're playing.
If you can teach them, like I hate, because I'm a Spartan through and through, MSU, and I cannot stand U of M, even though I went there too. But they have that stupid Go Blue song. And so it's do, mi, fi. They learn an accidental there. And when we come to that song, I'm like, it's the stupid song. No. And they're like, oh, yeah, it's that one. And so I think when you can have those fun things with them, it's challenging, but they can do it. Like middle schoolers are amazing what they can do. I think that the train of thought for a lot of beginning teachers too, and maybe some seasoned ones, is they don't expect them to be able to do different things. So I think you're right, Randall, when you were like, so you can't teach them this note?
They
Kids want to learn new things. Like I teach a lot of theory, and people are like, why do you waste time on that? And I'm like, waste time on theory?
Oh, no. Like, anyway, first of all, I will say I have definitely learned to be more politic than that. I was like, probably not a good thing to say. But like, talking about theory thing, like ritual, the first thing we would do in every class, beginning band, middle school band, high school band, was I would put up like a diagram of the piano, and we would all name notes going up and down. Mainly because, again, my experience as a percussionist and as a pianist, I was like, this, being able to visualize the notes. I wouldn't talk about theory. Like, you're never wasting time with theory. And you're never wasting time teaching the kids anything,
No, yeah, I totally agree with that. But yeah, I used to think Mechanical Monsters was too easy. And then I went through a phase where I was like, no, it's too hard. I need to wait to the beginning of the year. Like I have bounced around on my like difficulty levels on so many things. Because it depends on the band for so many kids. Like the band I had this past year, like I really wanted to hone some fundamentals with them longer. And we normally play Mechanical Monsters at our first concert in November. And I was like, I'm going to hold off on it. And they sounded so much better by the end. And, and I think sometimes it's okay to play easier music just so they can sound really good.
Yes.
Especially if you're trying to like record for like an honor band or something this year. Like I'm going to try to do that with my concert band. And like I'm looking through like grade 2s, but really I'm like, I think these 1.5s we could make perfect, like near perfect. And they're still fun, maybe a couple 2s and whatnot. But like I used to think, that would be boring for the kids. How is making something really good boring?
Well, I agree. Like I always think of fourth quarter, and I want to go for the gusto and have the best spring concert. But I also realize I have kids who are actively like living baseball and softball and track. And we have a huge archery team here and robotics. They are so busy that they just don't have the time to dedicate. So I always tell them, I'm going to push you where I know you can go. And, some of them overachievers get upset by it, but I'm like, if we tried something way harder when you're the busiest you're going to be in the school year, and when your mindset is like, I have 14 more days left, I have 10 more wake ups, I want out of here, you're not going to get the most productivity out. So take the easier stuff and make it great. Like, I think you can teach better with dynamics and balance with that because they're not really all worrying about fingerings too much or sticks too much or whatever. So I think you really have to think about those schedules. Like when you're like this whole thing, talking about picking music, when are your busiest times? Like if you teach high school and middle school, that fall is crazy with your marching band.
Oh, yeah.
Christmas, kids are going to be all over the place during that month of December. Like they're not going to be able to practice because they're going to be at all different sides of family parties. And so I think as an adult and as a parent, I get that so much better. Like I think me, and I know you would agree with me, Rachel, having kids really changed like my mindset as a teacher. Like
Percent.
just, I know, I'm like, oh yeah, I understand that. Like that's why kids couldn't come because they have
Yeah.
all these things to go to.
Yeah. The world doesn't revolve around band. And I think when I realized that, it put a lot into perspective. Yeah.
The job gets easier.
It revolves around the band for me.
Yep.
And I try to put in this perspective of, and I tell the parents this when I'm at the concert, like, guys, nobody is more, you're proud of your student, you're proud of your student, you're proud of your student. I am proud of all of them. So I'm the most proud. And so I try to put it into that perspective versus like, everybody should be practicing and, playing to the same ability or whatever. So that helps me. But is there, anything else, pitfalls we should look for, or things that have you ever passed out a piece and gone, oh my gosh, it wasn't going to work the way you thought it was going to work, or someone recommended a piece and then it was like, well, that didn't work out, the way you thought it was going to?
Well, I mean, I definitely had a piece when I was teaching that I wanted to teach. It was one that I just loved. So, which was They Led My Lord Away by Fred J. Allen. Do any of y'all know that piece?
Mm-mm.
It's just this beautiful, beautiful, really well orchestrated arrangement of this hymn. But it's got a nickname in the band world. It's called "They Led My One Away" because it's about a grade 3, and it's not real. It's like maybe 4 minutes. It's not a long piece at all, but it's just the balance and musicality required is pretty significant. So every year I would bring it out. We would read through it, and then I'd be like, and no. And then every year bring it, and then finally, and ironically, that group that I was talking about, the really good beginning group, when they got up and they were juniors, I brought that out. We played through it. I was like, this actually sounds good. This sounds like it's supposed to sound. So we will keep going with this. And so, sometimes we all have those pieces that we love that we really want to program, but you just need to make sure that it matches up with, the group you have, fortunately for me in that case, like that year, that was the group for that piece, but any other year, probably not. Like it would not have been as good. So I think, whatever you pick, the biggest pitfall that most directors make is forgetting about the band they're actually teaching, and so I think being realistic about your group is paramount to being successful.
Yeah, I had a piece. So one of my favorite pieces I've ever played, played in college, was Dedicatory Overture by Claude T. I think that's Claude T. Smith.
Declaration Overture?
Declaration Overture, Dedicatory Overture. One of
Is
them.
it the one that?
I think so. Yes. Is that?
Sorry, I love that piece so much. That's one of my ride or die pieces.
Yeah, I think it's Claude T. Smith. But there's an arrangement of it that is actually like really good, decent. I feel like it's Kurnow or Lavender. I don't know. But I played it and I remember thinking, oh, this might be a little too hard. But the kids loved it. And I think that was a time where it was probably a little too hard, but they didn't care. They were like, this is good music. And I was torn about it because I was like, no, it's kind of hard, but like still I have a kid he's a band director in Arizona now. And he's like, I remember playing that. That's such a great memory for me to have played that, with you. And so I don't know, there's sometimes when we pick music and, it's like, well, should this work or whatever, but it works itself out in the end.
I grew up, I don't know how you guys will react when you hear this name. My band director, Randall, I've programmed so much of your stuff. My band director programs so many Swearingen pieces of music.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I love them. I love them, but my bands have just never had the instrumentation to pull it off. Like his bands were huge. Mine, like by the time we get to 8th grade, I'm lucky to have 40 kids in that band. And they just always, it's hard to pull. Like I love Novena and Denbridge Way and pieces like that I remember just falling in love with when I was in middle school and high school. So I've tried those. And then I live in Michigan. So when they find out he's a Buckeye, my kids are automatically like, we hate him. I'm like, so, but I think back to middle school, and like when I was in middle school, I had a lot of really cool pieces that I loved, and I don't find the hook with them with my kids. I just think my kids are built different today than I was back in the 80s when I was in middle school. And so finding a hook with those has been a more difficult. I don't know if that makes sense, but like
Yeah.
I want to find a good hook for
Yeah,
them.
you're
So
right.
my go-to for teaching them more lyrical is to Kelly. I love Joy a little too much, and Portrait. Like that's obviously not lyrical, but just pulling those two out a lot to give them that.
Style it's so good. Portrait of a Clown is so good for style. Actually, that's a
My
great
kids love
Jordan,
those.
I was going to recommend that for you for your group because it's got little percussion for
Mhm.
your honor band.
That
So
I did that this year because I only had 2 percussionists
yeah,
in my 8th
it's
grade band, and
perfect
it
for
worked
low.
out perfect for them.
Yes. So okay, it's Clifton Williams dedicatory overture.
Okay,
Sorry about that. Bum, 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 bum. So anyway, that's a whole thing. So sorry, I could really talk about band music for a
That's
long.
good. Well, be sure to check out Declaration Overture by Claude T. Smith.
Okay,
That's a
yes.
really good.
I think I've always just gotten them mixed up. So, but yeah, we played a lot of Swearingen too. Oh my gosh, it was like on. He had a
But his
cycle.
percussion, digga-digga-da, digga-digga-da,
Yeah.
digga, it's the same the whole way through, but it was fun. Like
Meter changes.
I just thought it was
Yeah.
so much fun. Like I call
Yeah.
it bangers now. It was just such a cool piece.
Randall,
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you played a bunch of Swearingen growing up too.
Oh yeah. My favorite of all time of his was Exaltation.
Yes.
Which to this day I can sing beginning to end. Like I know that piece. Like I love it so much.
Yep. Yeah, he's great. He's just a fantastic writer. But I remember when I started teaching, it was like, don't play a lot of his music. You can't. And obviously, we still hear that today, but I think less.
Yeah.
When
Well,
you don't.
I want to interject something there because this is one part of band director culture that drives me insane.
I know. I'm agreeing with you before you say it.
Yeah, well, but what it is it's like, people will, like, you'll go to festival, you do whatever, and you'll hear people say, oh, well, you shouldn't play that. It's over-programmed. You shouldn't do this. Or, because, I also do a lot of marching band design. And, if people do like a Phantom of the Opera show, oh, well, you shouldn't do that. But here's the thing, like, okay, that's your experience, but these kids in this band have not experienced that music. This is about their experience, not yours as a listener. So shut it.
If people are going to judge, they shouldn't be able to judge if they're going to have statements like that.
Exactly. I agree.
I mean, you have kids, and our job is to expose them to good music. And I'll say it. I fanboy you a lot, Randy. I love your music, and I will have 3 pieces by a band on your stuff. I was taking some notes down from some questions, and like the Unbroken, every year I add a new piece just because it changed my students. Like they love your music, and you're the guy they know by name.
Yeah.
And they always are like, what Standridge piece are we going to do this concert, Mr. Simpson? And I'm like, well, I got this new one. Let's listen to it. And I don't think that's a bad thing. And I don't know. I agree with you. I knew you were going to say that too. And people that nitpick because you pick a lot of the same people, well, they fit our bands. Like I would rather play a lot of the contemporary composers' music right now because a lot of them have been teachers recently and they know what our kids need a lot more.
Yeah. I also think it's just really good to get out there and listen to different composers because I'm very much stuck in well, I don't have a ton of time to listen to music. I better stick to a composer I know because then I know it's going to be good and I might not waste my time. But I did a reading band recently and I found several composers I'd never heard of. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I should check these composers out because this music was fun to read. Now, that was an experience of being in a reading band and getting to do that. So, but back to kind of Swearingen and whatnot, my college band director called the Swearingen was considered an S composer because they're all S names. And Randall, I'm so sorry, your last name starts with an S. But
no, it's funny. People have pointed that out to me because it's like
Sweeney Story and
Sweeney Story, Saucedo, Smith. Yeah, both Smiths.
Yep.
And then it's like, there's quite a few.
Yeah, he was like, just another S composer. And I'm like, well, they're good. Turns out it's good. You can write
There's nothing
better.
wrong with last names with S's. I'll tell you that.
Right. So, well, we're coming up on an hour here. Is there, any hot takes that we have or, like I used to think my hot take when I used to start was like, oh, I don't want to play the same music over and over again because my band director would do that. But now I get it because okay, first of all, you're better at teaching it probably, number one, when you play it again. And number two, it's a different set of kids. And just like we just said, it's their experience and getting that to them. Any other thoughts that we want to throw out there before we wrap it up here?
I have just a thought in terms of like programming for a concert. One of the things one of my big tenets is that like a concert needs to have a shape just like a piece would. So like when I program, honor bands, anything I'm conducting, I always try to think in terms of like what is the climax of the concert? Like not just what is the climax piece, but like where does the concert itself reach its emotional climax? Typically with honor bands, I'm usually programming, 4 to 5 pieces, for the things. But I think people should think in terms of that, like what type of journey is the concert taking your audience on, and what emotions do you want to elicit from them? So I would say more thought in terms of horizontal programming in addition to just the pieces.
Absolutely. And do we start with a march or do you end with a march? Or do you not play a
Yes.
march at all?
Either, yes. But well, for me, like my general formula, I can tell you my formula for like putting together a concert. If it's 4 pieces, something fast and exciting for the beginning, and preferably short because I don't want to start with like a 10-minute thing that's going to bore people. I mean, not boring because of me, but it's just like you want to get that like we're in a concert. Let's get some applause for the kids. Get over it. The second piece is going to either be lyrical or it might be quirky or it might be folk songy, but something that contrasts the first one. Usually the third piece is going to be the emotional climax. Like it's going to be the trail of tears, or it's going to be the not alone, or, something like that, where it's really asking the audience to do a lot more emotionally. And then, finish the concert with, something like, a gallop, a march, a pops piece, something that just leaves them tapping their toe and smiling. But I think thinking in terms of like, what are we doing for the concert is something that eludes some directors.
I'm really big on finding new composers, underrepresented composers, and exposing your kids to those. And I make it a point in every concert. I don't talk about every piece to my audience, but I pick one per grade level. Like in the 6th grade, I'll be like, okay, this is the piece, and we really studied X, Y, and Z, or this composer. I go through the program notes and talk about that because I do want my audience to be educated on why I picked that music, so they get a good idea about it. So I think part of our job is to also engage that audience because they want to be entertained that way too, and kind of know what we're talking about, but you have to find that balance. So, but I look for, I have a lot of girls in my band and I want female composers that they could see. And we live in a very not overly diverse culture in our country, in my community here. So I do like to bring in underrepresented composers so they can understand that. And when I do have some students that can relate to them more, I think that makes it more meaningful. So and it's fun for me. I don't, like you were saying, Rachel, you do have those ones that you want to know, but man, I love learning too.
Yeah.
I love to sit down with that score and be like, oh my God, I found something really cool in here that would be fun.
Speaking of female composers, I never played a piece by a female composer, and I never had a female conductor.
No Anne McGinty's?
No.
Anthem and March is the best for
Yeah.
teaching your kids how to do that. I don't know. I have a lot. I find them an awful lot, and man, they're good.
So I didn't even know if a woman could be a composer or a conductor. So I thought I had to teach elementary music when I first started, music school. And then I was like, oh, I can wave my arms. This is great. All right. Can I be a band director? I didn't know that girls could do this. So, but yeah, I think it's super important to put, all different types of people and to put pictures of them up too, or at least show them the back, the cover, of their picture in there, especially if they're a different race. Cause, kids, if they can see someone who looks like them, that's a game changer. So
I'm a girl dad, and I want her to know she can do anything.
yeah, that's right. Any other final thoughts to wrap us up here? Well, this has been a joy, and I think we could probably sit here and talk about this for a much longer time because we're all pretty passionate about this. But it's been a pleasure hanging out tonight, gentlemen. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening. Your evening is a little longer than mine because I'm in Eastern time. So.
Oh, yeah, my evening's about to get real long because we're going to a 10 o'clock showing of the new Spider-Man movie.
Oh, I'm jealous.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not really dressed for this is not the right, even.
It's okay. You'll understand.
Franchise there,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, it might drive a few fanboys wild, but that's fine. A little irritation could go a long way.
Well, enjoy it, and thanks guys for hanging out. And this has been,
Thank you.
The Band Room Therapy Podcast. So thank you guys for listening. See you later.